Welcome to The Healing Artist. I'm your host, Frida. Friends, I spent the majority of my life not wanting to be here. I had a catastrophic spiritual awakening in 2019, and at that point, I chose life, and it changed everything. I went deep within, and from that process of massive amounts of meditation, over 250 spiritual texts, working with energy healers, walking meditation, yoga, swimming, nature. The culmination of all of the teachings have landed me in this place where I am now, and that is wanting to share. I have come to absolutely love doing my inner work. It is my joy, and I want to share that with you. So let's dive in. Friends, today, such a treat. We are joined by Catherine Crestani. She is a soul activator and intuitive healer who helps women and mothers turn exhaustion and self-doubt into clarity, energy, and purpose. After walking away from a six-figure company twice to heal from burnout, anxiety, and adrenal fatigue, Catherine rebuilt her life from the inside out, discovering that true success begins with alignment and not overachievement. Through her peace, power, and purpose framework, she guides clients to release what drains them, set boundaries that feel good, and reconnect with their soul's truth. Whether through retreats in Byron Bay, speaking events, or one-on-one sessions, Catherine helps women return home to themselves and lead with peace, power, and purpose. Catherine, welcome to The Healing Artist.
Hey Frida, it's wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me.
Friends, I am so excited to share this amazing human with you. We had the opportunity to have like a one-on-one session in the past, and I loved it so much. It made a huge impact. Yeah, that conversation we had, it was like life-changing. It was like this, it wasn't that long ago, right? It was within the last month.
Yeah,
Catherine
yeah.
was helping me with some money block issues. And I would love for you to share the entire behind the scenes of the money honey and explaining it because what you walked me through and then I went and did has actually made this incredible impact.
Well, I feel like we have to dive into how I got to learn about all these things because
100%.
because that's part of my story. Otherwise, everyone's like, how does she even know this? Um,
Yes, please.
so yeah, as you mentioned, I walked away from two businesses. So the first business I was part of, I had a business partner and I was still quite young, but I always knew my goal was I wanted my own business. I was going to run my own business. So after I'd been working for about 2 years after graduating from university, one of the business partners in the place I was working offered me her share of the business. And it was very stressful how it happened because I couldn't tell the other business partner, and she's there offering me more work for the next year. And I was like, oh, let me just sit with that. So anyway, so I bought in and straight away I had the intuitive guidance. Now I can say it's intuitive guidance. You need to still have your own thing.
Mm.
So in the background, I still started doing something for myself that was just mine. But in the meantime, I started building this partnership. And whilst I was building this partnership, it's very interesting how you can go from truly loving somebody to not even being in the room with them.
Oh,
And so it got very volatile. I went through a personal journey. Like I divorced my husband in that time and everything, but we grew and grew this business. And I had this beautiful gift of being able to see gaps in the market. So we went from this tiny two-room office kind of thing to having, I think we had three staff when I started, and when I left, we had eight full-time speech therapists and then two admin staff as well. And we expanded. I think we had seven offices plus we were going to schools. So we were quite a big practice when I left, and I had no qualms walking away. I was pregnant at the time, and I knew I had my own business in the background. So
yeah.
I call that my messy divorce. So then we get fast forward and I build this business up that I've built from scratch, like literally from scratch, and nurtured this beautiful baby. And my husband went to me this one year. He's like, you need to sell the business. It's not making you happy. I'm like, but how are we going to have money?
Hmm.
What are we going to do? And at that same time, I was going through a spiritual reawakening. That's how I
Hmm.
like to call it. But my dark night of the soul was my company falling apart. So
Mm.
in a period, so just to give anyone a background that's listening, in Australia, it's really hard to find really good allied health staff. It doesn't matter what it is, especially speech language pathologists, and it's really hard to find staff that will stay because there's always this feeling that there's greenness. I don't know, I've never had that problem until my business started to get older. It was really interesting seeing the shift in the marketplace and that sort of thing.
Mm.
So, um, in a space of a week, I had three people resign. And I was broken because at this point my health wasn't great. I was going to my naturopath every week because I was so stressed out. And I'm like, how am I going to find three staff? And
Yeah.
also I'm going to have to pick up the slack on that and then what about the clients? Because we worked with children. I was like, oh my goodness, and I went into this full on ball on the floor breakdown. And I was so angry and frustrated, and I was like, I can't do this, I really can't do this. And my husband and my son, they're there going, you can, get up, get up, get up. And by that point I was like, oh my goodness, like my guides were like, just get up, you keep going, you can do this. So I
Hmm.
got up and I was like, you know what? Okay, we'll just keep going. We'll figure it out like we do every other time. But it was just the fact that three resigned within a week. A month later, I hadn't replaced these people, mind you.
Hmm.
Another three resigned in a week. And
And this is the business that you built. Okay, so you had the business that you bought into, and it had something to do with helping the speech.
yeah, so both my businesses were speech language pathology businesses.
Okay.
So we worked with children. So the first one's long gone by this point. So this
Yeah.
is like fast forward seven, so about nearly 3 years ago. Yeah.
Okay,
So,
great.
yeah. Yeah. So
But how
um
how many employees did you have at yours? Because you lost three.
mm,
Like three?
I had one, two, three, four, five, six, I think about 10.
Oh
Yeah.
wow. This is an intense.
Yeah.
That's serious.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was definitely an intense business. And I was one that never asked for help, too. So I
Okay.
did
Yeah.
everything. So
Okay.
I took everything on. I had no admin. I was admin. Actually, my husband helped me for a little bit and he got really angry at people. So then I took over that. So there was no admin. There was, IT. I had IT. I actually gave into that one. But it was really interesting how I built this culture. So by the time these next three left, I was so angry. Like I went out to this spot in the bush where I meditate and I was just yelling. I'm like, what are you guys doing? I'm trying to step into the spiritual path, step back, look after my health. And you sent another three away. And then I accidentally took my anger out on one of the staff that did resign. And then I actually went to her, and this is a good lesson for anybody that owns a business or anybody in anything. Own your crap, because I went to her and I said, I apologize for taking my anger out on you. You were just in the line of fire and you didn't deserve that. I fully understand why you're doing what you're doing. And she actually said, I respect you more for doing that. And I was like, thank you. So, and especially even when staff leave, you don't want to leave on bad terms because people don't realize how small the world is, right?
For
And
sure.
so, so then a month later, I had another three staff resign in a
Oh my
week.
gosh. Okay.
And by this point, I was so chill about it. And I was like, you know what? These people aren't meant to be in my life anymore. And I'm not meant to have this business anymore. I don't want to do this. I'm done. I'm selling the business or I'm shutting the doors. Like it actually
Mhm.
came down to that point.
Yeah.
So I did. I sold my business and I got $250,000.
Hmm.
However, subconsciously, I have been programmed that you have to work really hard for your money.
Yeah.
And
You and me both,
uh,
sister.
mm, and I believed that I hadn't worked hard for that money because it just dropped into my account.
Mhm.
So after paying off a chunk of debt, we did a few things that we needed to do for our house. The money disappeared. And I'm like, what is this? I was like, this doesn't make any sense. You know, like I thought we were going to be easy breezy, have this money in our savings account, and I was still earning okay money. But then the business started to collapse, so I had to stay on and work in the business, and so my income all of a sudden was compromised because I was working on commission. And so I had to go through this massive worth story. And I'm like,
Mhm.
I want to learn about money and I'm going to learn about wealth. And that is where we come to the money, honey, because
Yes.
so I did anything I could. At this point, I was doing anything I could to learn about money and worth. And I met with people. I did their free sessions, and I actually took what I learned and I ran with it. If I resonated with them, I might have booked in another session. If I didn't, I just left it. But I also did a lot of the free conferences where you show up. Anyway, so I can't remember who it was, but this beautiful lady, she said, you need to have a discussion with money every week. And as you do that, you need to embrace something called the money honey. And the money honey is your way of imagining the money frequency. So when I met with Frida a few weeks ago, it was weird because I never know what's going to come up in a session because it truly is like people fill in a little bit of information, which you had, but I never know what's going to come through. And then as soon as we connected, I was like, oh, apparently we're going on this journey and we're going to your Akashic records for money and we're going to meet your money honey. And then, so my money honey. He's this really suave looking Jason Statham in his younger years, but he has more hair and he wears this amazing suit because I love a man in a good suit, and I was just like, what? I was like, I
I
can
love
hang
it.
out with you all day, more than happy to. And I actually have in my calendar to have something called a money date. And
Mhm.
sometimes I put it off or I forget about it and then I'll be like, oh, I'm sorry. And his name's Rich. Love
I
it.
know, I love it.
Um, so I said to Rich, I said, I always miss our dates. And he goes, it's okay because I know you're working with me in other ways. And I was like, all right. So then I still had to keep unpacking it because when it comes down to it, your money, how you attract money in your abundance really comes down to your worth and what you feel you're worthy of receiving.
Mhm.
And most recently, I was like, hey, universe, why aren't I getting new clients? And then I got back and I was journaling. And these are the questions you need to ask yourself. So, the biggest thing I've learned through running all these businesses, first of all, don't set up a business that souls depend that to revolves around you. If you
Mhm.
have staff, make it as a team environment where you all have equal, um, even though you might be the boss or the overseer, make sure everyone feels equal and validated and that they all have an equal role in the business. I had senior therapists I could have asked to step up, but I was still had to hold on to that control
Yeah.
somehow. You
Yes.
know, um,
But that's
that's
the
number
lesson,
one.
right? You just learn as you
Exactly.
go. I mean, it was the road.
Yeah. But number two, your business is a reflection of you. So if you're not getting clients, why don't you want clients? Or what are you doing to repel those clients away? So just the other week, because I have to be honest, I've been tired. There's a lot of happening energetically
Yeah.
and I was like, maybe it's just that. But I thought, oh, I'll journal. Why don't I want clients? And then I got, oh no, it says, why don't I have any clients? And it said, I don't want any. And I was like, oh, why? And it's like, because you don't like the word client. And then this whole thing came through that because I don't want to work with souls who are dependent on me or
Yeah.
rely back on me.
Yeah.
I want to work with souls who are choosing me to help enhance their journey and empower them on their journey. And I
Yeah.
need a different word instead of client because
Yeah.
client involves this frequency of dependency, bit like patient, right? Like patient
Yeah.
has this frequency of you're putting all your power in the doctors that you go to.
Yeah.
Whereas if you were stepping there and having a consult, that feels different to I'm seeing the doctor because I don't know what's happening with me, right? So
Mhm.
it's like this massive power shift.
Yeah.
But this is when we go into this level of inquiry. So with the money honey, it was like, actually, I need to start unpacking my relationship with money because most of us have grown up. There's like four main beliefs, like mine was you have to work hard for your money, but also money is evil, the root of all evil. Like how often have we been told, oh, and I'm not guilty of this, is like, oh, the billionaires are causing all these problems in the world. But then
Absolutely.
also met the opposite, where I've met multimillionaires or billionaires who are putting back into the world, but they just do it quietly.
Mhm.
It's just, and I had to go through that contrast too. So I had to unpack that construct, and then there's all those things we get filtered into our life, like money doesn't grow on trees. In America, it definitely does. You have paper money, like,
Oh, that's cute.
right?
Yeah.
Like here, our money's plastic, but at the same time, it's like, well, it's supposed to come from somewhere. Money doesn't come from thin air. Actually, it does. When you go tap your card on something, you don't even have to think about it. It
Right.
comes in the thin air. Like there's all these things we have been fed, and we have to unpack those. But at the same time, you need to work on your lower chakras, like your sacral chakra, and actually, I want to say your root chakra too, because if you don't feel safe and protected, you haven't got a container to hold anything.
Right.
So, and then, your solar plexus is a lot where your money is attached to.
Mhm.
So, it's interesting seeing these shifts in my life because it got to a point in March of last year. Wow, we're in 2026 now, of March of last year. And my husband and I were like, yep, we're going to sell our house and our land. And I'm going to get to quit my job because I was miserable. Like, as much as I love working with children, and everyone's like, your job must be so rewarding. You get to teach children to speak. It wasn't. It was eating away at my soul because I couldn't be truly who I wanted to be. I could see these clients coming in and going, hey, their liver's not okay. Or, hey, we need to work on these things energetically. But I couldn't say that because I was restricted by the practices I was in. And I had a handful of clients who knew what I did. So
Yeah.
I could, so they let me go full woo woo, if you will,
Yeah. Yeah.
with their clients. And,
But it was time for it to become integrated for real.
yeah, and I had to walk away. And so I gave in my resignation letter to my boss, and I in my on my gut it said put the end of April as your date,
Mhm.
that you're finishing up. But I was scared and I just put instead when my house sells. Now, never condition the universe. Step one, because it won't happen. And number two was I had to walk away on my own because I couldn't condition it that way. That was the cheater's way out. And the universe, I wouldn't learn my lessons that I had to. So I'm staying in this job that I truly don't want to be in, that I know has a timestamp, but didn't really have a timestamp. And I started to go numb. So I lost feeling from it started in my left pinky. It
Mhm.
moved up through my arm. It got to the point I couldn't feel half my face. Um, and I went to all my team of beautiful healers because it's beautiful to have people in your court set this up when you're in a good state because you don't want to be reactionary.
Right.
So at first, I thought it was a chiropractor over adjusting, and that did help relieve the numbness in my face. So I think that was a little bit of it. But then it kept going. It just kept coming back. And it wasn't until I met with these beautiful healers that I met through my podcast that went, hey, you know this, but until you get rid of the cause, the numbness is going to come back. It'll go for like 4 or 5 days and then it'll come back. And that's exactly what kept happening. And I figured out it wasn't even coming from the nerves, it was coming from my liver. And anyway, all these things. And then I got to this point and I was meditating with my old coach. And he's like, what's your heart telling you to do right now? And I said, quit. Like it was non-negotiable. It's like,
Yeah.
you need to quit. And
Yeah.
I knew that if I kept going how I was going to head to an autoimmune because my system was
Yeah.
already fried. I
Yeah.
was still healing, and it was like, you need to quit. So my husband and I, we had this massive blow up. He's like, why can't you hang on? And I was like, I can't. I was like, I'm going to end up in a wheelchair. Like, this is the extent of this numbness is going to go. And I feel it. And I'm waking up every day scared. I can't do this anymore. So the day I quit, a lot of the numbness resided, but it was still there. But the
Mhm.
first day I got to be a stay-at-home mum with my son,
Mhm.
every single one of my symptoms went.
Yeah.
So, this is the power of truly listening.
Yeah.
And then it was like a real big shift too. So then I had to suddenly figure out, all right, how's money going to flow in?
Mhm.
And but it was a massive shift for me. So I'd always been the breadwinner my whole my whole life. I
Yeah.
was always the breadwinner through my relationships, always. And all of a sudden I'm relying on somebody else to bring in the income. And it was this big shift. But yet, even though my husband couldn't earn as much as me, we still
Mhm.
had our savings were increasing for a bit before they dropped down again. And I was like, this doesn't make sense
Mhm.
because the universe does provide, and money comes from weird places. I think
It
we had
does.
this discussion too. You know, when you're aligned and when you're open and you really, really need it, it'll just drop into your bank account from really bizarre places. You know, like a few years before, I really wanted to do this medical intuition course. And
Mhm.
I was like, I don't really have the spare cash. And then they're like, put it on your credit card, we'll make the money appear. I was like, all right, well, it's like $700, but okay, let's see what happens. So I did that. And within 2 days, in my old work, like an old company bank account that I hadn't used for ages, that was still open because it had a few things I needed it to still be doing, uh, this client paid off this bill that was 2 years old and it
Yeah.
was for $700.
Yeah.
It's like, what? I was like, okay, thank you. Even, I was like, oh, I wouldn't mind just a one-off client just to do this, this, and this. And within 2 hours, the client messaged. I was like, huh, interesting. I've had a random message saying, "Hey, your old account for an internet provider was part of a court case. Apparently, like we lost. We now have to pay you back all this money." I was like, "Oh, thank you." And even, things. So the biggest thing I've been learning is to not work from a scarcity mindset, which is
Yes.
something that we were talking about
Yeah.
too, which is, um, when you're always in scarcity, it's like, oh, I've got another bill to pay.
Mhm.
Oh, that money came out of my account. Oh, I can't believe how much groceries are. Personally, I still can't believe how much groceries are. But at the same time,
Yeah.
how I've kind of flipped that is I'm like, no, I'm actually grateful I've got the money that I can pay these bills.
Yes.
Or I'm grateful that, and I would even say like, okay, I'm paying this bill. I asked the universe to send it back to me 10 times, and giving each dollar. I had this beautiful lady I was working with the other week was she said, give each dollar a roll. So, you're for food, you're for clothes,
Mm. Mhm.
you're for this bill or whatever it might be. And she goes, but where you can grow your wealth is where you give your dollar multiple jobs. And I was
Oh,
like,
that's interesting. Okay.
oh, it makes sense. Because my biggest thing now to learn to grow my wealth is to learn to invest it and how to make it grow.
Mm-hmm.
Because we've been so conditioned that we need to go work hard for our money. We have 9 to 5. We only get the weekends off. We only get you don't have to live that way. This is the thing. Like when you step into your authentic soul alignment, you don't want to be hustling for clients. You don't want to be pushing, 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 pushing because you are not going to attract the people that you want to work with. You're not going to attract those souls that want to come to you. Instead, you're going to be in this hustle mentality, push, 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 push. And we're stepping out of that vibration and energy. We're stepping
Very
into
much.
this divine feminine where it's like, actually, no, you work on your energetics and you will attract the clients that are aligned for you.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
That
yeah.
that that I can definitely feel that frequency for sure. And then just like, but that getting into that allowing space, it takes a moment to have to like take that breath to be able to step back and actually allow.
And surrender and
Yeah.
trust.
Yeah.
So, you have that. What I've seen the shift with working with people recently is that you actually don't have to feel through all the crap anymore. And I was like, oh,
That is recent too. It's very
I was like,
recent.
I was
I'm
like, oh,
feeling
you
that.
lucky people. And
Yes,
because
but we wouldn't be able to do the what we do
a
if we didn't
hundred
go
percent.
through what we did go through to get to the place to be able to help the people shift. But it is wild. That's what I'm getting to, that the frequency is shifted in a way where there's access, like you don't even have to know what the things are as they leave.
No, it's just you observe, you accept, then
Yeah.
then you consciously and subconsciously speak to let it go. And
Yes.
then just you letting it go, you feel the gaps that are left, because this is what people forget, is that your energy cannot be created or destroyed. It is transferred. If you heal something or shift something, or even, do your ancestral generational healing, you need to pull in a new frequency. Otherwise, it will default back to where it was because it's so used. Yes.
Listeners, please, that was just some deep, deep wisdom. Yeah,
Mhm.
if you wanted to share that a little slower. This is the moment that we are standing in right now. You just shared it.
Yeah, so you cannot create or destroy energy. Energy is transferred. If you heal something deeply, if you shift some belief, you need to truly, truly allow new frequencies to come in, and you either choose to program it yourself and pull in the energy you want through your soul essence, and it's always through your higher self. Your higher self knows exactly what you need. Or the old energy will come back in some other way because you're used to that. Your body doesn't like change. Well, actually, your body does like change. Your brain doesn't like change. So if you haven't reprogrammed that, it will just come back in as it was, and you'll keep living the same lesson again and again, and you'll keep healing it. You'll keep why am I not healing? I have another friend slash client, and she keeps going in for the same operation, which she definitely
Yeah.
needs.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I was talking to her, and it's getting longer and longer in between each one because she is doing work on it. I said, you need to get to the root cause of this. It's something with your birth. And that's I said that's all I'm allowed to tell you. You have to go discover that yourself. So it's and she's like, "Oh," and she knows all this, but this is the thing. You can't The biggest thing my old coach said to me was a mirror can't see herself. And this is why you need to work with other people because, you know, as much as like even for our time together, Frida, you said, okay, this is what's going on in my life. And you can go and try and unpack that yourself. Whereas in like 30 minutes, I was like, nope, this is what we're doing. We're unpacking
Hmm.
it. We're gonna do this really, really quickly. Let's go. And you're like, oh, okay, here we go.
Yep. Yeah. And like
Yeah.
going to the center of that. So like one, I was available for it. Like the universe lined it up and but I am available, right? So it's like allowing that to happen without question and just fully sinking into it. And then what we arrived at with talking to the money honey, going into the Akashic records, feeling it, sitting there, I was actually shocked by the information. But the information was you have a whole bunch of clothes that are no longer in alignment with the person that you are. Because I had a lot of like art stuff that was just covered in paint. Within 2 hours, I went and divested of the entire closet to get it to the point where, okay, now we get a few items of clothing. This isn't gratuitous insanity, but it was just like, let's get some stuff that which you would prefer to step into. Because I kept thinking, oh, I'll dress like a healer when? Well, you're a healer now. You're already doing the thing now, right? So you might even notice I've got my loose fitting, the
Oh,
athleisure wear is
it's
gone.
comfy. Yeah.
Comfy.
Yeah.
I want breezy. I want open. I want comfortable. My body wants to breathe. Whereas before it was constricted and tight and covered in paint, stiff.
And
But we did
also
that fast. You helped me with that fast because it was just like you see it, get it. But I had to walk towards it too. The-
100%. And you have to be open,
Yeah.
right? And ready. So, the biggest thing I've learned just working in I go to listen to so many different people, and this is how you kind of expand. And then I also have the beautiful gift of claircognizance. So I'll just get a download and know. I just have this deep knowing, right? And it's funny because people will send me things and I'm like, nah, blah 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 blah. And they're like, oh, that's what I was feeling. Thank you. And I was like, okay, cool, no worries. Like I don't even question it. It just comes through. And get that, anyone listening, you have to work on getting to that level of confidence where you actually trust your intuition that much because often all the doubts will come up when I started and I'm like, can I even help this person? Whereas now I'm like, all right, let's go. You either accept it or you don't. Even I do oracle card readings for people and I'm like, you take what resonates, you leave what doesn't.
Yep.
This is just what's coming through. And if people aren't open, like you said, like you were allowing and ready, then it's not going to work anyway. So even my husband was really ill about 2 years ago, and I couldn't work on him. And I thought it was because I was too close. So,
Mhm.
I was like, oh, maybe it's because I'm too close. But it wasn't. He'd shut down his belief in any form of spirituality. So there was no way I could work on him because he didn't believe what I could do. He could believe what I could do, but he didn't believe in his heart and what I could do. And once that turned back on through another person, I was able to work on him and do a lot of work with him. So it
Mhm.
was really interesting when you see that shift. But the biggest thing I've learned is that people need to be problem aware, but also solution seeking, and not to put you in a savior role. So for any
Absolutely.
healers, light workers listening, please do not end up in a savior role where people become dependent on you. And this is the problem that we kind of have in society at the moment, is this guru mentality where it's like, oh, but this person said to do this. It's like, but it doesn't resonate with you. So why are you doing it? Oh, because it's a good spiritual practice. I'm like, you don't have to do it. So, even I've done courses where they've said, oh, and I would listen while I was driving in the car because I had to drive a lot for work to get to my office and things like that.
Mhm.
So I got through a lot of audiobooks, courses, and things listening. And they'd be like, okay, so, make sure and please, I'm not putting this down. If you do this practice and it feels right for you, do it. But it's like, okay, light a candle and step into a quiet space before you do this meditation and da, 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 da. And then I was like, oh, okay, I'll just wait till I get home and do it. But then I was already getting the downloads from what that meditation was leading to. I was like,
Right.
oh no, I'm just going to listen and keep going. So
Yes.
it's you don't have to go through all the rituals anymore. It's like, even, being having white witch in my family, which I only found out like recently. But anyway, what even that, I see all these witch rituals and everything like that. If you don't feel it, don't do it. If you're like, why are they doing it that way? Like in shamanism, if you're removing an entity from somebody or negative energies, you're meant to have a really clear quartz crystal. So it has to be really clear, like no cracks or anything. Those are really hard to find, first of all. And secondly, what the process is, you're meant to take that out of the person's body, put it in the crystal, then burn it over a fire. And I went, hey, spirit guides, is there an easier way to do this? Can't I just open a portal back to source and then send them home?
That's
And
what
they
I
went,
do.
and they
I
said,
skip the crystals.
exactly. And they said, yeah, 100% you can do that. I was like, oh my goodness, this is so much easier. So, if you ask the questions and you be inquiry, like always, it always comes back to your own discernment and your own intuition. Keep
Yeah.
asking you, what resonates with me? Do I want to do this? And the more you practice, the more you don't have to go through the ritual. So, when you're starting, you might need the ritual to support you, to
That's,
help you
yeah.
get you in the zone. But then the more you practice and you step into your own frequency, the more you can step away from the ritual. So,
Oh, yes.
you, yeah. So even when I used to meditate and go to my higher self, I would, imagine leaving my body, floating above my body, going above the earth, going to a door, walking through a door, going to the cliff, sitting on the bench, my guides would come. And then one day I just went to do it and I was there.
Yeah.
And I was like, did I do something wrong? This is me, right? Still in doubt. Did I do something wrong? And then my guides were like, no, you're just used to this frequency now. So you don't have to
That.
go
Hmm.
through all the rigmarole and even for me, when I go to do different connections, for me, it used to be a portal would appear. So a door, and the door would always have a symbol on it. So for
Ooh.
example, if I wanted to go hang out with angels, I'll go through the angel door. It has a
Oh,
little wing on it.
fun. How cool is
Yeah.
that?
If I want to go to the galactics, I go through this door. It has this weird atom symbol on it. I'll go through
Cool.
that. If I want to go to past my past lives, I had this little version of me as like a little guardian for that one. I would go through that door, but then it
Um,
got to the point where you could just go, all right, I want to connect with this, and then you're there. But it takes practice and it takes holding that energy so you don't have to go through that ritual anymore. So
yeah.
rich.
Yeah.
And in saying that, I still sage my house. I still do those things because sometimes you need that focused intent, and that's the whole idea of a ritual is focusing your intention so that you can have that space and create that energy around you.
There isn't a wrong way to connect with spirit. There isn't a wrong way to
100%.
connect with your higher self. Like, I mean, I feel a lot when I'm swimming, like going to the water. But just like, so just sharing with folks that are listening, like, there isn't a wrong way to arrive at any of this. It's really all about how do we learn to read what reads for us. Like there's
100%.
each one of us. And then also that something that's been coming through my channel a lot lately is they want me to write the Bible of my body so that we can learn the absolute of our individual bodies and then understand, well, what does that toothache mean? What does this feel like? What does this mean?
Oh,
So that we're
I have a,
reading it.
I have a book for you
Oh, what
to
book?
look
What
at.
book? Tell me.
It's called Metaphysical Anatomy by
Okay.
Dr. Yvette Rose.
Okay.
And basically, for anyone listening going, what are they talking about? 90%, 90% of things that happen to us, for us, and in our body is our body giving us a message. And our body has this
Yeah.
beautiful wisdom. So, what I like to describe it as you have a feeling or emotion, and then you can choose what you do with that. You, like we spoke about earlier, you can observe it, accept it, and let it go. You can fully feel it, or what we've been conditioned to do is suppress the hell out of it and
Sure.
just keep showing up as your happy, smiley self. It's okay. Now, if you keep suppressing your emotions, if you keep choking back your words, if you keep holding back your anger, it will manifest in your body. So if you get to a point your body is in pain, something happens with your body, it is your body telling you that something is not in alignment and it is your last warning. So
Yep.
I always say be grateful for the pain because otherwise you would die. Because
Absolutely.
it's your body saying, hey, this is the last warning. A bit like with my numbness, a bit like with all the things that I went through. You have to really start to listen to your body and listen to, what really resonates for you. So so even, okay, they're saying share the toe story. All right. So I have so many stories of this playing out in my life. So I had a really achy big toe on my left foot. On my left foot, my big toe was really achy. Like I asked my husband, "Can you crack it?" Like it's just so sore and achy. And I kind of just ignored it and thought, oh, I've just got a sore toe. And then I was walking outside and um, we have like wood chip around, and I was wearing my flip-flops, and they were really thick, mind you. And this piece of bark flipped up and pierced through the whole flip-flop and pierced my big left toe. And I was like, wow, that was really weird. Like there was actually a hole in my flip-flop and everything. I was like, how does that even happen? Still, I ignored it, right? So this is the universe going, okay, we're going to turn it up a bit more now.
Hmm.
So I was in the middle of a shopping center buying some shelves for my healing space because I was determined I really wanted these shelves. I'm like, I'm going to go buy them. Anyway, and I put the shelves on top of this like wheelie basket and I looked at it and I had this brief intuitive moment and I said, that's gonna flip. But before I could finish the thought, it did flip and it landed on my big toe and it broke it, like in the middle of the shopping center. And I am sitting there and I'm like, do not pass out, do not pass out, do not pass out, do not pass out, because it was so painful. And it was almost like a out of body experience. It definitely was an out of body experience. So anyway, once I regained my thing, I hobbled with my shelves. I got my shelves, paid for them,
Of
hobbled
course
to
you
the
did.
car, looked down at my foot. It's like covered in blood. It's
Oh,
like black and
honey.
blue. And I just went, oh my goodness, I've been ignoring my toe. I understand. Thank you. And I wasn't angry about it. I went and did all my healing stuff I normally would. I actually reached out to a friend. I said, hey, I figured out it's to do with X, Y, and Z, and it's to do with financial things and moving forward. Very interesting. And she's like, yep, you're right. Here's some more feedback. And I said, thank you. I really appreciate it. Anyway, within 2 weeks, my toe looked like nothing had happened. I was back at Pilates and everyone's like, didn't you have break your toe? I said, yeah, I did. And they said, why is it okay? I said, because I practice what I preach and I went deep and found the healing and I found the cause. So if you can find that cause, you can shift a lot of things. Now, if you get to a point you have an autoimmune, that is harder to shift because that is your whole body and
Shutting down.
frequency has been shut down.
Mhm.
So that is it's not impossible, but it's a lot more work. Whereas if you can get it before it gets to that point, you can shift anything. And I have read so many amazing books about people who have even had MS and they've recovered. I've interviewed people about who have had incurable diseases and
Mhm.
recovered. It's really comes down to, again, allowing, being open, and how deep are you willing to go and
I love,
face your feelings?
yeah,
Yeah.
and really go to the center of it. I love medical miracle stories because I do think it opens up and shows the possibility for others and how can we meet it before it gets there.
100%.
Mhm.
So, don't like I've been on so many podcasts and panels and things where I said, when you get that headache, don't reach for the Tylenol. We have a Panadol, whatever it might be, and numb it. Actually go, all right, why do I have a headache? What is going on with my body? Sometimes it can be as simple as like, actually, I've used up all the salt in my body and I need to put some Celtic salt in
Mhm.
my body. Or a good rock salt. I use Celtic, but and you put it in, and within 90% of the time, I find that will shift your headache. So you
Mhm.
haven't even got to that point. But then it's like, what's going on with my head? Why is my head got an ache? Or, my other favorite is not my favorite, but you lose your voice. What
Yeah.
aren't you saying? What are you
Oh, yeah.
choking back on? You got reflux. What aren't you digesting? So
It's really,
it's
they're simple. It's simpler than we want to make it. Like the whole sort
yes.
of like what spirit's been bringing through in terms of reading my own body. It's like it's simpler than we think. Just like you
a
said,
hundred
or like
percent.
lower back pain. Where don't I have my own back? It's not that
Yes. Yeah, and even
complicated.
like your feet are about moving forward and walking your path. So I had a client and she broke her ankle. No, sorry, not broke her ankle. She broke her foot, every bone in her foot, in her left foot. And then it turned out when we started to unpack it, because she was ready to move forward, but she forgot to close all the other timelines. So we always have multiple choices. We always have divine will. So this is a beautiful thing that any soul has in the whole universe, doesn't matter galactic or not. We always have divine will. You always have the freedom to choose. This is the thing. And even when if you say I don't have a choice, you've made a choice, right? So you always have the freedom to choose. And the more authentic you are to your choice, the more aligned your actions are and the more in flow that you'll be. Now, when you make a choice, you kind of shut down all the other possibilities. So you imagine you're walking along, you get that fork in the road, and when you go to the left, you shut down the right, right? So, however, we always have multiple timelines that we can possibly walk on at any moment. So, what was happening with her is part of her still believed in this old timeline. And so, even though we'd done work to start shutting it down, the relationships were there and those sorts of things. When she wanted to step forward into this new path, which was so aligned for her, there was a resistance still there. And so weirdly, this is a very freaky story, but she said, I feel like I was pushed off this balcony. And that's how she ended up breaking her foot. And I said, she goes, okay, let me look into that. And I'm like, she's like, what? I said, you pushed yourself. And she's like, what? So this alternate version of her wasn't ready and pushed herself. And she's like, oh, she goes, message received, but why was it such a spectacular way to do it? And I was like, well, it was a big message, it was a big change, because the energy met the energy.
Yep.
So, and this is what often happens. Even I had another client, she kept saying, it's all too much, it's all too much. So the universe kept giving her more because it was all too much, so she kept getting more and more. And it was only she fell and she actually broke her hip. And it was only when she did that and she was in the hospital bed and she rang me up and she's like, oh my gosh, why is this happening? I said, I've told you multiple times, you need to stop saying it's all too much. I said, because that is what you're attracting into your life. Too much, too much. And she sat there and because had that time, she couldn't go anywhere. She had to sit there and contemplate. And she messaged me back because she couldn't talk, but she messaged and she just said, I understand. She goes, I sat with that and I need to change my mindset. And what I'm saying, I said, yeah, because what we speak, we attract, what we think we attract. There's all these things that keep happening and we don't realize how subtle our thoughts control our life. It's
Absolutely.
our
Yeah.
yeah. And when the more you become conscious of your thoughts and start to audit them, you can cancel them. So if you have a really negative thought, I just say cancel, cancel, cancel.
Yes.
I don't want that, thank you. No,
Mhm.
no. And the more you do that, the more you practice that, the more you start to master the energies that are coming out. And I'm still learning. We're all still learning, you know.
Absolutely. Yes.
But this is
It
the
gets
thing, the more
easier.
it does get easier. And, the more you learn to master your thoughts and your emotions, the more that you can start to manifest easier in your life.
I have everything deep wisdoms. You're amazing, deep wisdoms. I'm 100% there with you. I wanted to share something that is bringing forward is um, this year, my intention was I realized I only talked to two men on my podcast last year in all of the things because I love women. I'm in the flow of the divine feminine. That's what I'm comfortable with. And I thought, okay, and the men that I talked to was my best friend and my husband. So I thought, I would like to invite energy toward for men to come to the podcast this year. And in my inbox, I said, I want 5 men in the year 2026. Well, I've got like 10 in the inbox that are going to be coming. So it's like, just like what you just said, when we set the intention, when we speak the words, because I was repelling them. Oh, I don't want that. I don't want that. I don't want that. Okay, well, let's have some different perspective come on. And then here they are.
Yeah.
They
And
arrived, just they arrived.
And even doing an audit of like, hey, what do I want in my life and what don't I want in my life can be really
Yes.
powerful too. So even I was doing this meditation, it's like, what don't you want anymore? And then I heard podcast interviews and I was like, oh, but like my podcast, and they're like, oh no, 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 no. You keep doing your podcast, but don't do podcast interviews just for the sake of it. Go on with the purpose.
Mm.
And it was funny because then within that week, these interviews I'd been booked for or cancelled. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Whereas ours wasn't cancelled, but I have an intention and a purpose, which we'll get
Yes.
to a little bit later. But at the same time, I was like, oh, how interesting. But then just to have that feedback, like you said, the next day I opened my inbox and I had be contacted by an agent to have all these people on my show. It was like ten different people. And I was like,
Hmm.
oh, okay. Okay. All right. I
Hmm.
understand. Thank you. I keen to keep doing my podcast. So it was
Yes.
really interesting feedback. And even, I have my beautiful spiritual mentor. She's a massage therapist as well. And she was saying that she just notices in their clinic, when the bookings start to get lighter, when people start canceling, it's actually the universe reflecting that they need to have a break.
Mhm.
And what they've done for this year is they're actually having a fluid timetable. So they're not having set times every week. They're actually honoring their cycles as women because it's for women.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
honoring their cycles. So when they're in that flow and can see more people and have the capacity to do that, they have more availability. But when they need to rest and restore, they won't be there. So they're saying this is how we're working moving forward. Please accept this is we're not going to have the same time for you every week. You need to work in with us and allow that. Otherwise don't be our client kind of thing. And
Yes.
it's amazing when you set those boundaries for yourself. And this is something I've learned, running businesses for nearly 2 decades. When you tell a client this is the only time I can do, if they truly want to see you, they make it work.
Yes.
So very early on in my career, I learned to stop being flexible on my boundaries. So I would say, oh, I've got this time or this time. Oh, can you make this time work? And I'd look at that time and I generally go, I'd know straight away, oh yeah, that client could probably move to that day. Like that wouldn't be a problem. Or like they're not going to move. But initially I would say, oh, let me see if I can do that for you. And I'd move everything around and shuffle everything. And then they would not show up for their appointments. Like they constantly not attend. And I'm like, oh my goodness. Whereas if I genuinely, and then I learnt saying, this is all I have. Oh,
Yeah.
okay, we'll make it work. Okay, great. Thank you. Different energy, different frequency, different way of showing up. Bit like how when you look at circling back to money, when you look at that scarcity all the time rather than abundance.
Yeah.
So even now, the biggest shift I started to do, there's actually an amazing book which I told you about. I think it was that you'd
Yeah.
already, yeah, Could Love Money and Money Loves You
Which
by
I've been
Sarah
loving.
McCrum.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's on Spotify as an audiobook. But this is the universe too, right? When you're open and allowing, things will drop into your path. So how I came across this audiobook is it mysteriously got saved into my playlist on
Yeah,
Spotify.
that stuff is so wild. When
And
someone
I was
drops it in,
like,
it's like, oh,
because I finished a book and I was like, oh, what's the next one I'm going to listen to? And then that book was there. I was like, I have never seen this book, but clearly I need this right now. And I started listening to it, and it talks about money as a frequency,
yeah.
you know, in the end. And a lot of people find that really hard to take and to believe. But so the newest thing I've been doing is when I go to the shops, if something's on discount that I need, instead of saying, oh, yeah, I've saved money, I'm like, oh, thank you for the extra dollars I have to spend
Yes.
this week.
Yeah.
Right? Like it just, and how often, and I look at it, and some weeks you go to the shops and everything you want is on special. And it's like, what is this? So, but
Yeah.
then, you can choose to invest that money back into buying extras of those things, so then you can stretch those dollars a bit more and make them work harder for you rather than, and even it happened, I went to buy something for my son for his birthday. And it was already on sale, and I was like, oh, that's a really good price. But then when I went to pay for it, it was on sale again. It was like the Black Friday sales or something. And I was like, wow, thank you for the double return.
Yeah. And offering gratitude when it happens. And since
Yes,
we had our
so important.
conversation as well, like I've been noticing when I've done some shopping, things that I want have been on sale. After getting into this frequency and having conversations with money, I still have, there's work here because I'm just still learning and really believing and moving into the flow. But I've definitely noticed a change and a shift.
Yeah.
But
And you have to catch yourself, because as soon
yes,
as you start to go into that fear scarcity mindset, that is when you repel money and you push
right.
it away, because it's feeding that I don't have enough. So it's feeding that energy.
Or
Whereas when you
how can I earn that? How can I put in instead of allowing it to
yeah,
come?
yeah. So even recently, I really wanted to join this group, and I was like, oh my goodness, how am I going to find this money? And I was like, you know what, universe, if you want me to do this, send me some clients. Where I could have just said, send me the money. That would have been so much easier. But I defaulted and said, send me the clients. So they sent me one and a half clients. So it wasn't quite enough. And then I was still sitting there going, oh. And then I heard, go on the website. And then they were having a Black Friday sale. So the universe had sent me the money. But it was just trying to shift into that frequency. But then I went, why am I even I had this money buried. I just have to work a little bit to get it out. Like, why am I putting these conditions on myself again? So even learning to say yes to yourself and not being, like you said, not being frivolous and like just, throwing your money out wherever. But at the same time, okay, I'm going to go buy a few bits of new clothing.
Yeah.
Underwear is another one, right? Like,
Mm.
especially, and it's funny being a mom on the flip side of that, you're more than happy to go spend money on your child,
Mhm,
but you hesitate doing it on yourself.
mhm.
So I'm like, why was it okay that we just spent this money on my child for his birthday present, but then I can't spend less money than that to do a course that I really want to do? Like, it's just that flip side. And it's a lot of ongoing work, but you just have to have compassion for yourself and laugh.
Yeah.
Laugh it like, oh
Yeah.
my
It's
goodness,
catching it
what
is
am I
funny.
doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the universe also presents things to us in a way where there is humor here. We can look at it with a sour face or we can look at it with humor. And it's usually it is usually humorous.
100%. And it's just like, and if you don't laugh, it's like we've been wanting to go to the beach for ages. That's part of why we want to move. We want to be closer to the water. And finally, we got an opportunity on the weekend. And the day that we could go, the weather flipped. And so we get to this beach, which is 90 minutes away, and it's raining and windy. And the wind was coming off the water. So it was like you were being sprayed in the face by the waves and the sand. And we were like, oh my goodness, we cannot sit on the beach. We didn't even care it was cold. It was like we just wanted to be near the water. And even my son's like, oh, Mom, I just wish the weather was better. So I said, I know this is why we want to live 5 to 10 minutes from the beach instead of 90 minutes. So we can just go down there. And if it's terrible, we go home, but you don't mind. But you've been
Right.
there. So my husband's like, we got to just put our feet in the water. So we're like walking with our umbrellas, like trying to get, I was like, nah. But the feeling of putting my feet in the water, it was enough just to reset. And I was a little bit sad. And we stopped in this cafe we normally go to. And my husband's like, oh, we just drove 90 minutes to get one of your favorite chais. I'm like, but they didn't even use the tea that I like. They used the powder one. And he's like, and we just laughed. We had to laugh because it was just, you know, just how it was. And
Yeah.
at the same time, you just accept the situation for, and you make it what you want it to be. Like there's a
Yeah.
song, it is what it is, but it is what you choose to make it be.
Yeah. Yeah. Catherine, I would love to invite you to share what you're up to with your virtual book club right now. Share with us what you've got going on because you wrote a wonderful book and you're releasing it chapter by chapter. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so I've this has been in the process for a while, but so I channel my books, which is really cool. So
Mhm.
how I get them is I get them in a dream and then I write the story after I get the dream. So this is my first novel, my debut novel that I've written. Yeah, it's not my first book, but it's my first novel, and it's a romantic thriller. And I wanted to release it differently. And over a year ago, my coach said, "Why don't you release it chapter by chapter? That'd be a really cool way to release your book." So then, using chat, chat and I'm not afraid of AI. That's a whole other podcast. But we were talking, I was using AI, and I was like, all right, you're a best-selling book marketer. How should I release this book? And
Hmm.
it came up saying chapter by chapter. And I was like, what's the best way to do that? And they said through Substack and make a virtual book club. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I love this. This is so resonant. So that's what I've started to do. So I've created this space called my book obsession. And what happens is each Monday, or Monday Australian time, so it'd be Sunday in America's time, um, a chapter gets released. So this just yesterday, the chapter one came out, which is completely free, and then on Thursdays you'll get reflections come to you. So just reflective questions to bring you inside the story. Because if you can get involved in the characters and truly feel it, then you are stepping inside the book and moving with the book. So that's the aim of this book club. So there'll be two chapters released from next week. So by the middle of April, when the book is actually released, it will be there. And the book's called My Virtual Obsession. And for anyone into romantic thrillers, this book is for you. It's about the overreach of AI, and the first part of the book. And so our main character is called Clive, and he's just looking for love. He's sick of being lonely. You know, he wants to go find somebody, but he can't find them in the real world. So he's having a break and he steps into a virtual reality and he thinks everything is fake. He doesn't realize he's not talking to an avatar, he's talking to somebody real. So that is our book, and but she doesn't like that he then meets someone in real life and starts to not show up for their dates. So the first part of the book is from Clive's perspective, and then as we get part of the way through it, it flips and it goes from Anna's perspective, who is the person he's met online. So
This is
it's
so
very
exciting.
it was very, very fun to write. And it was really long. And then I did a lot of editing on it. And now I'm really excited by it. I'm really proud of it. And it's very, very different. And I just got the author copies yesterday, which I'm like, I should have had it here to hold up. But it looks very cool. My husband designed the cover and
Sweet.
yeah. So it's a lot of fun and I love doing it. So if you're curious and you want you don't have that time to read a whole book, this
Mhm.
is a way to digest it really easily. So you know you just get two chapters in your inbox, you know it's there and you can read it and then there's a gentle reminder a few days later when there's some reflections for you to think about. So it is very much an integrative experience. And if you join the book club, you'll also get bonus scenes and behind like there'll be extra scenes that will be coming and all those sorts of things as well.
I
Yeah,
love it. I love it. It's so fun.
it is.
I
And
really like you. I think that you're awesome. Like, I don't know. I'm really, this podcast has connected to me with people all over the world. And occasionally I just meet somebody, I'm just like, you're cool.
yeah, yeah. And we're connected now through WhatsApp because that's
Yeah.
the way we connect with people overseas these days, which
Yeah.
is amazing. And yeah, I feel that too. That's the amazing thing. That's why I still do my podcast. So when I started my podcast, which is called Wheeler Healing Matters, but when I started, it was all about blowing open my throat chakra and, truly opening up and not hiding who I was anymore. And then as it went on, it evolved and it was like, no, now it's about connection, which is one of my values, which
Yeah.
is about creating deep connections with people. And even if I don't resonate with the person, I actually sit there afterwards and I actually question, why don't I resonate with that
Mhm.
person's energy or their story or, whatever it might be. And I actually do that compassionate inquiry because I'm like, no,
Mhm.
it's not a reflection of me. There's just something jarring about why I don't get along with that person.
And I've
But then
really
I,
enjoyed your podcast. It's fun.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But then there's like other people who I get on like it's like meeting soul sisters. Like this one person, I got along with her so much. She was like my first video one when I shifted from audio to
Mhm.
video. And then she sent me this thing and we shared birthday. Like it was like, wow, this is crazy. And so we had this virtual coffee date and it was like meeting a kindred spirit, like just in America versus here. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. So this is the beauty of really stepping. Even I've met some hosts and these hosts have become like friends and then part of my podcast little community. And and that's the beautiful thing too, is if you interview enough people, and I don't know if you found this, Brita, you find people on similar missions, and
Yes.
then I connect those people together because
Yes.
again, I'm all about connection.
Yeah.
And even people who I might work with, like clients, I'm like, hey, I can introduce you to this person. Would
That
you
is,
like that?
I'm
So
finding that that's where this is going. I was just working on actually putting all of the emails together so that I could connect people easier, so that they weren't just in my inbox. I was trying to put them, I was literally
you
doing that
need a
yesterday.
database. You need
Yeah.
a database.
It's
Yes.
literally sitting there doing that so that I can put the two people together. Like you go with you and da 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 da. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is the beautiful thing. If you want to be a really amazing human, for anyone listening, if you can't help the person that comes up in front of you, or you can't empower them, or whatever word you want to put in there, if you know someone who can, connect
Mhm.
them together. And not only are you helping one human, you're helping two humans.
Mhm.
And that effort doesn't go wasted. And, you
Yeah.
know, this is the beautiful thing you can do. Like, hey, I can't actually support you, but I feel this person be really powerful. And for
Yeah.
you to do that as well is truly stepping out of your ego and you might just be the lighthouse that that person needs in that moment. And you might be the reason that person needs to find the other person,
Right.
So,
Or you're the step
um,
between the two. You're the integrator to like connect the dots to get them where they need to go.
a
Absolutely.
100%, a
Yeah.
100%,
And we are
and
that for each other.
yeah.
It is a stepping a little bit out of the ego. I forget about that part because it's so I move. Do you know what I mean? I forget it, but you're absolutely right.
Yeah, and even when I was working, it was funny because even when I was working as a speech language pathologist, I would do that. I would say to my clients, like, hey, like, I really feel like you need this more than me at the moment. Like, I've got a few people I can connect you with. And people would constantly come back to me and said, oh, we really love that you connect clients with this all the time. And I was like, oh, is this an unusual thing? And I said, yes, it is. And it was just so bizarre to me because we get so protective or competitive or, we feel like we have to outshine somebody else. But in the end, we're all here. We've all got a purpose, a mission. We all have a unique frequency. You
Mhm.
can't outshine someone else because you'll always shine as yourself.
Yes, and that tribal, the communal, the coming together is what we're moving towards. Like
Yeah.
really the old way of having to keep it singular and behind our own
And
fence.
competitive.
It's done.
Yeah.
It's done. It's the
Yeah.
old way. It's out.
There was this saying I heard that if your root chakra is in balance, that's when you want to build the fence, and then if your sacral chakra is in balance, that's when you want to reinforce the fence, and then if your solar plexus is in balance, that's when you want to throw things over the fence. It was really interesting. It was just these different levels of boundaries. Yeah, yeah.
Oh my God. On that note, what a joy. Catherine, I want to tell you that I love you, and this has just been such a treat. God, Universe, Source loves you, and my goodness, go and have an amazing day because it is very early in Australia, and you are not going to have your whole day ahead of you.
Thank you, Frida, and so much love back to you, and thank you for having me in this space. Thank you.
Absolutely. And all of your info will be in the show notes. All right.
Beautiful.
Bye, friends.